The Old World. There are scatterings of the Old World throughout the lands and even submerged off coastlines. Relics, buildings, monuments, and rather grand things to show we missed quite a spectacular time. These are what are being called Tartarian currently, to represent grand things of a time past. It is mentioned on maps and was known as a region, now covering Russia, China and lots of Europe. As the range of photographs from the 1800s and early 1900s show, they are all over, and the buildings we have left to speculate on about their true nature show a grandness and beauty we are simply not capable of today. Or it would appear that way with our modernistic, square and unflattering building techniques. Very much built not to last, or look good in any way, often barely even functioning for its purpose. In the last 100 years or so, many of these old unique buildings and monuments have been destroyed, burnt, bombed and demolished throughout various countries, some of them strangely not long after construction apparently. World fairs being a classic example of build something grand and disposable, quickly, at great cost, then tear it down. Although some of the temporary features built still stand today. But we lost the skills of that time, it would seem. And world wars seem to have served as a great cover to get rid of others that would have been noticed and probably stopped otherwise. Ancient, not so ancient, and modern alike, sweep and clear missions hold no regard for what has come before. And of those previous skills, I still find it difficult to get my head round there being enough skilled craftsmen and materials available to find their way to every continent and multiple countries to build all these architectural masterpieces within what seems to be a relatively short time frame. The similarities are striking. Post offices, city halls, asylums, schools, etc. seemingly way too large for the communities and infrastructure of the towns of the time. Dirt roads against pillared giant neoclassical buildings, for a population of only a few hundred in some cases, or less. Where we are also led to believe people were rather illiterate and didn't get pushed into formal education until early 1900s. Someone was writing a lot of letters, or there was a great need for shipping things around small towns though, for there to be so many massive post offices, and a big need for overly large buildings, and somewhere to house all the people deemed crazy or unfit for their new society rolling out. Maybe I'm missing something there. The other rather splendid buildings we have, which are earlier it is said, and we also have plenty of, are churches and cathedrals. So even further back, less people because of all the plagues and wars, yet grand building projects requiring money, time, people, skills, construction, etc. seems to defy belief really, when you really think it through. Or maybe it's just the timeline I've been taught doesn't quite add up, thinking we had Romans building great things, then the skills just disappeared for a few hundred years during some dark ages, followed by peasants in medieval Europe, the Crusades, etc., leading us to believe people again were just poor and busy trying to live, with skirmishes, revolutions, wars and religious domination also occurring. The 1493 papal decree, the Inquisition, the Church of England split, and the war on monasteries. Oh, and chuck in some plagues, huge fires engulfing entire cities, invasions, fall of empires, etc. Just seems like what we see, and what we are told, don't quite match up. And we must have had a great number of people to keep losing millions, every decade and century, to what we would call an untimely end. When you realise, potentially, lots of people have been deliberately removed from either society or the records, it would be much easier to retell it as you want it remembered. Because you would want a certain version of events to be carried down, the chosen history to be taught and retold. Usually children would be very important to that, and being separated from their parents, of course, makes this much easier. Funnily enough, there was a fair amount of movement of that nature in the 1800s and 1900s. Check out my article, A Train of Thought, for more on that. But again, many countries and continents have moved a great number of children under the guise of for your safety and health, or just for plain old social experiments or excuses for education, displacing natives and trying to eliminate cultures, language and traditions that way. It's a tried and tested method, still going on today unfortunately. So given what we know of how those who control society behave, and their methods and motives for things, I find it easy to understand why they wouldn't want beautifully crafted buildings around to remind people of what came before. Also, whether they are a representation of a mysterious time or not, they are of a previous time and mindset, and one they don't want people having anymore. To start over, you need to get rid of what came before. And people can be very good at remembering, but only if they actually knew in the first place.